It was 10:27, December 28, 1989. Novocastrians were shaken in a way no one had expected. The city was thrown into confusion with buildings collapsing and an unknown number of people trapped inside. At the Newcastle Workers' Club, emergency workers painstakingly searched the rubble. Days later, the death toll numbered 9. In Hamilton's Beaumont Street, more scenes of chaos. 3 bodies were found under collapsed awnings. Today, Newcastle marked the tragedy with a minute's silence exactly 1 year later. Throughout the city, ceremonies and prayer services are being held. The legacy of destruction still hangs over the city, with many of the 55,000 damaged homes still being repaired.
Definitely under threat of fire. It looks like we might be losing one now.
A huge ball of black smoke hung overneath, an inferno of flames raged perilously close to houses.
Up there to the gate, mate. We've got no pressure.
Fire units were called in from throughout the area, police blocked off roads and ambulances were placed on standby. Fearing the worst, emergency workers evacuated sections of Cessnock Road. Terrified locals could do nothing to stop the fire, they could only flee. In the panic, some pets were left behind. At Kersley, fire raged through bushland with flames leaping 30 metres into the air. Firefighters had no alternative but to let the blaze burn.
The fire's completely sprung around 180 degrees. The southerlies came up at about 30 knots and has completely blown the fire back this way. It's jumped the road here at Neath, and we're doing our best at the moment.
Kersley residents watered down their homes, one family claiming the danger could have been avoided.
The forestry won't let us cut anything down, and they won't even put a fire break through where their land comes right to the back of our property.
Farmers had little time to worry about stock while one native and her baby scampered for safety. Tonight, firefighters are backburning bushland, light rain is falling and police report the fire is under control. Despite the intensity of the blaze, there are no reports of damage to houses. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Among the scaffolding and bandage walls of the cathedral, Novocastrians gathered to remember the 13 people who died when the city was violently rocked. Prayers were offered for the rescuers who worked tirelessly in the rubble of the Workers' Club and for those who continued to help the distressed and injured. But alongside the spiritual recovery is the rebuilding of the city. In his address, the Right Reverend Alfred Holland spoke of the frustratingly slow bricks and mortar recovery. To symbolise future rebuilding, bricks were carried to the altar.
Father, we offer you these bricks as symbols of our desire to see this city rebuilt.
And in the hope of spiritual and physical healing, oil was given.
The car and caravan blocked 2 lanes of the road after skidding 50 metres, jackknifing, spinning 180 degrees and bouncing off a guardrail.
The car was coming down and I reckon the wind draft just got it and it's just flipped. And she tried to control it as best as she could, but she didn't.
The 54-year-old driver from Sydney had not towed a caravan before. Police believe the van became unstable due to an unbalanced load. The driver was treated for shock and the road cleared for traffic within an hour. Surf lifesaving clubs along the New South Wales coast have joined the competition to see who is the best in keeping our beaches safe.
It's the typical situations that the lifesaver will find themselves in a rescue event.
Clubs from Avoca, Soldiers and Lakes Beach competed in the Central Coast Trials for the finals. While the Surf Challenge uses the traditional carnival format of swim, board and rubber ducky, it's different in one important way. Each event involves a rescue. Soldiers Beach will compete at Manly next month for the title. This region has a strong contingent of lifesavers. Last year, Dixon Park was the winner. It was chaotic and tight sailing in Belmont Bay with the invitation lead-up race to the 505 Australian Championships. 62 dinghies have entered, including 3 former world champions, the Australian and former Australian title holders. In the 505 class, all boats are the same design. In this racing, it's purely a test of skill.
It's what you do with what you've got, I think, and it's a real challenge.
The titles begin tomorrow with racing over a set 12-kilometre course.
One of the drivers, Rod Bowen, supplied most of the thrills, almost rolling in his first heat to come back and do it properly a little later. The final was battled out between George Tatnall, who earlier broke the 1-lap track record, and current series leader Max Dumsney. Dumsney finally won out and took the checkered flag from Tatnall, with Americans Danny Smith and Jack Hewitt taking out 3rd and 4th place.
The first news of the impending sale came from an advertisement run in yesterday's Sydney Morning Herald to auction the Wharf's Elizabeth's and Sinbad's restaurants, as well as the QE2 nightclub, function room and kiosk. At least 3 groups are already vying for the leasehold business, which is expected to be sold before next month's auction. Current owners John Burns and Peter Tapp won the tender to develop the property more than 2.5 years ago from more than 70 other interested parties. John Burns says the business has gone from strength to strength, but it's time to move on. His latest interests lie in a newly opened brewery in Maitland and a hotel-motel development in Queensland. Advertised with a cash turnover of more than $4 million a year, the Queen's Wharf business currently employs about 150 people. The business operates on a lease from the Newcastle City Council, which owns the building. Town Clerk Barry Lewis was today surprised to hear of the impending sale and said Council still has to approve the transfer of the lease to a prospective buyer. Paul and Paul Mounter are cousins and were the local hopes for a place in the world-class competition being played on Newcastle Beach. Paul Mounter in the blue shirt is one of the biggest hitters on the circuit and is nicknamed Animal. Competition is intense with games played up to 15 points. But today it was the Asef Petrovic double that nudged out the Mounters for 7th place. In the men's final, the 5 straight set winning duo of Calder and Jamieson were again victorious. The Pro Ball continues tomorrow with the women's final and an exciting Australian and foreign players draw getting underway from 9 a.m.
Beach volleyball may still be a fledgling sport in Australia, but in the USA it's big business. A multi-million-dollar circuit sees the top players earn a small fortune each year, something the best Australians can only dream of. Some, like twice national champ Rod Kinross, have dipped their toes into the lucrative US prize pool and found the water was just too hot.
You sort of go over there as a big fish in a little pond, and you get over there and you're just a little fish in a big pond. It is exactly gives you that feeling.
But that may be about to change. The Aussie pros held their own next to the international guests at Newcastle Beach today, and many are saying it's only a matter of time before someone from down under makes it big stateside.
There's a few younger players here with some good talent that could break in the next 5 years, in my opinion, as long as they got some good coaching and learn to play the style of play the Americans play.
Meanwhile, in the women's event, top seeds Marion Taylor and Susan Carroll kept their formidable record intact with a stylish win in this afternoon's final. The pair have been beaten just once in the last 2 seasons.
It's 75 years to the day that more than 200 spirited young men passed the same way as this small band of marchers. They were en route from Walgett via Narrabri to Newcastle, eager to do their bit for an Anzac nation still reeling from the losses of a bloody Gallipoli campaign. Until now, the Wallabies story had followed them to the grave. Local author David Dial has researched, funded and foot-slogged his own campaign to have them remembered.
These were real men. Nothing had been recorded, their story was not known.
The original Wallabies endured drought and downpour along the way, as well as the hospitality of towns such as Gunnedah, Singleton, Weston and Maitland, and despite the long march gained weight from the food given to them by well-wishers. After a month on the road, David Dial and his small band of army cadets from Gunnedah and a piper from Adamstown have rediscovered the hospitality, but they've also battled heavy traffic and the apathy of a modern age.
Definitely times are different now. I think if it came to the crunch, I am confident that the young generation of Australia today, they would still answer their country's call if that call went out.
More than half of the 265 men who enlisted during the 1915 march were killed on the battlefields of the Somme, Passchendaele and Ypres. The march will pass through Cessnock, Kurri Kurri, Maitland and Wallsend before reaching Newcastle on the 8th of January for a memorial service. There is a fine line between high spirits on the high seas and the potential for disaster. The MSB is worried that boat owners who burn off their outdated safety flares to sea in the new year could confuse authorities in the event of a real distress call. The flares burn brightly and are ignited from a handheld tube that is marked with a use-by date. In previous years, the water police have learned to expect a rash of calls for flare sightings, but this year offenders will be met with a fine.
On one occasion there a few years ago, there was a chap let one off unbeknownst to him. It was so close to 12 o'clock that nobody took any notice of him. Then half an hour later, another red flare went off, and that's when people on the shore thought that's a bit strange. Half an hour later, and that's when they contacted us.
The MSB will be out to enforce its latest boat safety awareness campaign on local waters from tomorrow. Officers will carry out checks on pleasure boats, making sure they have a life jacket for each passenger. The new year will also usher in a classification program for boat mooring areas. Mooring fees will be adjusted on the popularity of the location.
Donna Proctor was sharing lanes at the Lambton Pool today, but in 2 weeks' time she'll be swapping strokes with the best in the world. A late inclusion in the Australian team, Proctor has been the big improver in the weeks leading up to the World Championships.
Yeah, I've sort of surprised myself in Wollongong with the times I was doing. I was swimming a lot faster than I thought I would have been, so yeah, I'm quite happy where I'm at the moment.
Although a former Commonwealth record holder in the 400-metre individual medley, Donna won't be competing in her pet event. The withdrawal of Hayley Lewis from the 800-metre freestyle has given her a start in Perth, and coach Eric Arnold is certain she'll return with a medal.
This time, for sure. You know, she's done a great job for Australia prior to this, and now going back to where she's well ranked in the 800 as well as the 400 medley, she's going to do a great job.
With a solid 3-metre swell running, Sunset Beach is perhaps the most testing wave in the world.
He's covered up, he's still inside, down from the bottom.
One man more than equal to the task was Merryweather's Nick Wood, whose radical small wave act lost nothing in translation. He qualified for his first Hawaiian final along with gutsy Victorian Tony Ray, but most expected them to be dominated by Sunset specialists Mike Latronic and Hans Heidemann. Someone forgot to tell the Aussies though, and a radical display saw the two youngsters from Down Under battling it out for surfing's biggest prize.
Put your hands together for Nicky Wood.
Wood, as always, was modest in victory.
I just think that I was pretty lucky that all the right waves come to me. That's about, you know, but I've worked hard for it as well, so I'm proud.
Just as proud was his father, Robbie, who today described the win as a vital step in Nick's career.
Well, so far in his professional career, it would be certainly the most important.
All the sweeter because it's in Hawaii?
Yes, on their home ground, it's great to win over there. You know, it's the recognition in the bigger surf in Hawaii, and he backed up with a 9th in the pipe, which was great effort also.
American Tom Curran finished 9th in the event, but that was enough to give him the world crown for the 3rd time. Australia's Pam Burridge fulfilled her lifelong ambition several days ago when she won the Underwets Women's Pro and took out her first world title. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
Lindsay is 24 years old and holds a current driver's licence. In this informal experiment, he'll have just one schooner of beer. After about half an hour, he's breath tested and the result is ominous. If Lindsay had one more alcoholic drink of any size, he would have gone over the .02 limit. Police say the amount a young driver can legally drink is so low, they might as well forget it.
Nobody actually knows their actual metabolism unless they've been tested. Probably the safest thing is the old motto, don't drink and drive.
While older drinkers remember the extensive .05 campaign, which advised 3 middies an hour and 1 every hour after that, younger drivers have been left very much to guess.
It depends, like, you know, some different beers have a different alcohol content than others, and what size of glass you drink. Like, it's a pretty big glass, that's a 5.8 alcohol volume beer. So, you know, probably about one of these, two schooners or 1.5 schooners. Depends how you can handle your beer too, really, isn't it?
The .02 rule applies to learners, P-plate holders and any driver under 25 years who's held a licence for less than 3 years. Generally, the young drivers support the new rule.
Do you agree with the new limit?
Yeah, I do actually.
because a best friend of mine's brother died by drink driving, so I don't believe in any alcohol when you're driving.
Also included in the .02 limit are all taxi drivers, bus drivers and heavy transport operators. They're only too aware of the new rules and have a pretty clear idea of the amount of alcohol which would put them over the limit.
Oh, I'd say 2 middies would be enough. That's full strength beer.
Do you think it's a fair sort of regulation?
Well, I suppose it is, considering the volume of traffic and the weight of these bloody things now. You know, it's... I'd say yes.
Meanwhile, the Hunters Highway Patrol Police are wrestling with another concern. The region's road death toll took a sickening leap last year, despite a statewide decline.
We were very disappointed in the last 2 months, namely November and December, where we'd had 10 fatalities. Prior to that, we'd only had 15 for the year. It was a real breakout, and we're very disappointed.
The death toll could have been higher, but for a successful Christmas highway operation codenamed Safe Arrival. In the 2 weeks up to the new year, there were no fatalities. Police booked 1,260 drivers for speeding, charged 83 for drink driving and 95 for seatbelt offences. Overall, they said, a good performance by holiday motorists. But police may have to target a new group in the battle against the high death toll for the year, the passengers. Almost half of all the region's road fatalities were just along for the ride.
There's a joint effort required, and when they're in a situation where they find either the driver has been drinking to excess or driving at a speed in excess of the speed limit, they should turn around and indicate that they don't support him and perhaps stop the vehicle and leave it.
Police aren't sure why the attacker selected the woman as she parked her car outside a Katie's dress shop on the Pacific Highway at about 11 o'clock in the morning. She was carrying several $1,000s to be banked at a nearby savings branch. As she turned from the vehicle, the man confronted her in broad daylight. They wrestled with the plastic bag for a few moments until he punched her in the face, fracturing her jaw. 2 days to follow, the victim could only watch as the man was pursued by other shoppers across the road towards a Franklin supermarket. The man escaped into a nearby mall. Police say there could be dozens of witnesses with vital information who could help them.
I believe there would have been a number of people in the area who may have seen this attack occur. It's a violent attack, and we'd like anyone who has seen anything to come forward.
The man police are looking for is in his late teens, about 180 centimetres or 6 foot tall, of slim build with dark hair. He was darkly tanned, and at the time of the attack he was wearing a black t-shirt and blue jeans with scuffed white running shoes. If you recognise this man or witnessed the attack, call police at Belmont Police Station or dial the Crime Stoppers hotline on 008 251 009. Call Belmont Police or call toll-free on 008 251 009.